Joining us right now, GOP political strategist, co-founder of MustReadTexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good morning.
Thanks for coming on today. I want to get your thoughts here in a little bit on some of the Texas races that you're watching. But we've got to start off, of course, with what happened in South Carolina. Obviously, Donald Trump with the big win. When it comes to Ted Cruz, I've seen a number of articles out there that say Ted Cruz is in trouble because of the evangelical vote that he did not win. Do you think Cruz's campaign is in any kind of trouble compared to Marco Rubio's campaign and others?
I think Cruz and Rubio both have challenges ahead. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it is interesting to look at Cruz's Carolina, and you do kind of wonder why he didn't do better. The evangelical turnout was the highest it's ever been in South Carolina. It was over 70%. So obviously much higher than it was even in Iowa, where Cruz did better. So I think it's clear that Cruz is able to do very well in caucuses where turnout is lower. But when turnout is higher, Rubio has benefited because he's been sort of a momentum candidate in Iowa, but particularly in South Carolina. He gets late-breaking, late-deciding voters, and he's done that to some extent with endorsements. I think Nikki Haley's endorsement was significant in South Carolina. But as I said, look, both candidates have problems ahead, okay? Cruz obviously needs to do really well on Super Tuesday, March 1st. It's not just a matter of winning Texas. He probably needs to get 50% or more, both statewide and in the vast majority of the congressional districts, so he can take the lion's share of the state's 150 or so delegates. But that's probably not going to be enough. I mean, that would be enough to keep him in the race, but he needs to really go win Oklahoma or Alabama or Georgia. He really needs to take one or two or three other southern states to really pick up delegates to put him back in the hunt. Now, if he were to lose Texas, there would be enormous pressure on Cruz to get out. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't think that's likely. Most of the polling I've seen that's public and private had Cruz in the 40s, low 40s, and Trump in the low to mid 20s. So I don't think it's a real risk, but you never know. Now, Rubio, on the other hand, has challenges as well because I don't know where Rubio wins, Chad.
Yeah.
He was asked that question on ABC yesterday, and he said, well, March 15th. I mean, March 15th is a long way away. It's 3 weeks away. And, we'll see if he's able to, do better in Nevada than the expectations are. Maybe he can finish a strong second. But, I don't know where he wins. Now, March 15th is Florida, and obviously that would be a must-win for him. And, of course, there's a chance Trump wins Florida. So Rubio and Cruz both need to win their home states, but they've got to find a way to broaden their appeal and win some states as well. Trump has a lot of momentum right now, and I think he's going to be in a strong delegate position after March 1st. And so then the question becomes, do we have one candidate challenging Trump on March 15th, or do we have more than one? Because I think if it's Rubio versus Trump or Cruz versus Trump, the non-Trump candidate has the upper hand. But if you have both of those candidates splitting that vote against Trump, so far, it's been very beneficial for Trump.
Well, and you look at March 15th, that's when all the states become winner-take-all. So I guess it's possible for some of these candidates to stay in, but as you said, unless Cruz and Rubio both, they have to come to either some agreement or something. One of them has to drop out. Otherwise, I don't see how anyone stops Donald Trump from becoming the nominee.
Yeah, March 15th, you have, I think, 4 states. Florida, Ohio, Illinois, and I believe it's Pennsylvania. So those are the 4 states. These are all very large winner-take-all states. They all matter. And, of course, as I said, Ohio, you could look at Kasich. I'm sure he wants to stay until March 15th. He's going to also try to perform well March 8th in Michigan. I guess he hopes he can win a couple northern and Midwestern states on March 1st. I think Vermont and Massachusetts are that day in addition to Virginia. So Kasich has some hope he can sort of survive till March 8th and then survive till March 15th. But, there's a third scenario here, Chad, which I think is interesting, which is what happens if you prevent Trump from getting a majority of the delegates? And so this is the argument for everyone staying in and being strong where they can be and preventing Trump from getting delegates. And that is if Kasich wins Ohio and Rubio wins Florida and Cruz wins Texas and, some of these guys win some other states here and there, maybe you prevent Trump from getting a majority and you have a brokered convention. And I don't think the convention is going to want Trump to be the nominee. I still feel like there's a strong majority of Republican both activists and voters that do not want Trump to be the nominee. I mean, you had 70% of the vote in South Carolina go against Trump, or 66% or so go against Trump. So you haven't seen him really break through that ceiling yet of 35%. Now, we'll see if he's able to do that as this race is narrowed, but that's another scenario. Now, I think, in my mind, the single best scenario would be Rubio and Cruz team up and run together. And obviously, whoever's in the stronger position has better leverage to be the presidential candidate, and the other has better leverage to be the vice presidential candidate. I don't think we're at that point yet. I think we could potentially be at that point after March 1st if Cruz has a big night, or after March 15th if Rubio has a big night. But that is one scenario where I think Rubio plus Cruz beats Trump, and I think that's true at almost any point between now and now and May. But as you said, and as I said, you've got to get it down to a one-on-one race, and I don't see a forcing mechanism to do that apart from Cruz and Rubio not winning their own home states.
What is Ben Carson doing?
I have no idea. It's beyond confusing. It's maddening. It's to a point now where it's maddening. I mean, his campaign, this past week leading into South Carolina, they said their entire goal was to not finish last. And, of course, they finished last. Now, it wasn't by a huge margin. Basically Kasich, Bush, and Carson were all around 7%. I think he's actually making a play to help Trump. He's kind of doing what Huckabee did in 2008 and trying to deny Romney, the second place overall. I think he's going to stay in the race to try to hurt Cruz and help Trump. And he maybe thinks in his mind's eye he can be vice president or something like that. I don't know what he's doing. He's got to be basically out of money. He's a total non-factor. He's at the point now where I think he's really kind of embarrassing himself. And he's not even being really covered. No one's paying any attention to anything he's saying or doing. So it's really a sad end to a campaign that had a lot of potential and a candidate that had a lot of potential, and I think still does. But boy, he's not running a good campaign here at the end.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, of course, we have a lot of races going on here in the state of Texas. I know you've been keeping up with those as well. What are some of the races that you're looking at here in the state of Texas for election night coming up here on March 1st?
Yeah, so you've got 4 statewides that are competitive. You have the Railroad Commission open seat, which has 6 or 7 candidates running, none of whom are very well known. My guess is that goes to a runoff between former state rep Wayne Christian, who got in a runoff for Railroad Commission 2 years ago, and Gary Gates, a businessman in Houston who's spending millions of dollars really trying to buy the seat. He's run for 6 or 7 offices previously and not been successful. So I think that goes to a runoff with those 2 candidates. You have State Supreme Court. There's a number of primaries. The biggest one that's getting the most attention is incumbent Deborah Lehrman and challenger Michael Massengale is on the Court of Appeals. A number of outside groups, including Texans for Lawsuit Reform and others, have supported Massengale. I think there's a pretty good chance Massengale surprises and wins that race. You have the other 2 incumbents. Ava Guzman is being challenged by a perennial candidate, Joe Poole, who's backed by trial lawyers. And I'm blanking on the 3rd Supreme Court justice at the moment because it's too early in the morning. But those 4 statewide races are all getting some attention. The 4th race is Paul Green and Rick Green. Paul Green's the incumbent. Rick Green is a conservative activist, former state rep. I think Paul Green will likely win, but that could be close as well. Now, if you go down ballot, there's a ton of interesting races, tons of state rep races. There's 2 open state Senate seats. You have, obviously, your congressional race in the Lubbock-Abilene area. So I think a lot of those races, or at least the congressional race, will go to runoff. A lot of the state Senate and state rep races are going to be very, very close, decided by less than 500 or 750 votes. We'll see. I think Joe Strauss may get pushed into a runoff, which will be earth-shaking if that's true.
Yeah.
I think Byron Cook is, of course, the can is going to lose. Be interesting to see if Charlie Guerin loses in Fort Worth. I think he may win, but it's going to be very close. So there's going to be a lot to watch on election night.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got our own out here with HD 84, which is heating up. So it's all over. It's a lot of people are heading out to the polls, and still I think there are a lot of people staying home and just waiting to see what develops until Election Day. Because who knows? Someone else might drop out of the presidential field or one of these other races. You just never know.
Sure.
Yeah, Matt, tell folks what they can find this morning on mustreadtexas.com.
Yeah, the one thing I'll just highlight is I have my column in the Austin American Statesman, which was published today, which previews the primary in Texas. It discusses the presidential race here, but also all the down ballot races that I'm watching, and it explains how delegates are allocated at the presidential level in Texas, which is very complicated, but important for people to understand. So you can find that, all the 2016 news, all the legislative races news at BuzzStreetTexas.com.
All right, Matt, as always, appreciate your time. We'll visit with you next week.
Take care.
Have a good one. It's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak.